This is the 9th lesson in a big series where I'm teaching the top 25 jazz standards for guitar players. If you're interested in playing jazz guitar at all, then you are in the right place. There's a link to a playlist of the full series in the description. The song we're learning today is number 9 out of this list of the top 25 jazz standards for guitar players, and the song is Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. If you're just here to learn the chords or just the melody of this song, just use the timestamp links in the description to go directly to the section that you're looking for. You can practice everything you learn here along with a custom-made backing track that I made for you with me comping so you can feel like we're jamming together. There's a link to that backing track in the description as well. Here's what we're going to cover in this lesson. First, I'll tell you about the song Softly as in a Morning Sunrise and why it's worth learning. Then I will teach you the melody by clearly demonstrating it on the guitar with notation and tab on the screen. I'll teach you the guitar chords for this song by demonstrating both the easiest shapes to play and the more common shapes to play for this chord progression, all with chord diagrams on the screen. I'll share a comping tip that can be applied to any song. I'll teach you the scales you can use to improvise over Softly as in a Morning Sunrise, all with demonstrations and scale diagrams on the screen. I will demonstrate chord tone soloing over the whole progression, and in every lesson in this series, I include a unique piece of advice for how to truly internalize a jazz standard, so I will share that. If you want to see all the visuals from this lesson, I have them posted on my blog. There's a link to that in the description. And lastly, I'll give you a guitar listening recommendation for this song. Softly as in a Morning Sunrise was originally written in 1928 by Sigmund Romberg and Oscar Hammerstein II for an operetta called The New Moon. It was originally composed as a tango, but eventually became a jazz standard after the Modern Jazz Quartet released a jazz swing version of it in 1954. Artists like John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, Chet Baker, Stan Getz, George Benson, and many others have recorded renditions of this tune. Softly as in a Morning Sunrise is a great minor key song to have in your repertoire, featuring heavy repetitive use of the minor 2-5-1. You can almost think of it as a minor 2-5-1 study, and that can translate to thousands of other songs. Let's jump in and learn the melody to Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. So what we're going to do here is just look at the melody for a second, just look for what scale is it from, what accidentals might it have that go outside of a key. Well, it's so much C natural minor. Any accidentals? Here's one. Okay, so there's an accidental E natural where the key is C minor, so usually we have an E flat, and that's it. So really knowing the premise here of showing you this and talking about this to learn the melody is that I'm going to show you the scale that the melody comes from. If we know that up and down really well, then learning the melody and remembering it is a lot easier. So I'm going to show you those scales that it comes from, and then we're going to just show you the melody with tabs on the screen, and then you can learn it from there. Okay, well, what does this do here? Well, we have E natural and everything else is still the same. Well, this is coming from the F harmonic minor scale. So it's just that one note there happens to make it come from the F harmonic minor scale, which is the scale that this chord comes from and that we'll use to improvise over it as well. So the two scales that we're going to learn most importantly is C natural minor, and then we'll learn F harmonic minor as well, and then we will learn the melody after we work on those scales. Let's do it. Oh, and one other important thing here, I got a comment on one of my videos. They said, why are you playing the melody up an octave? Well, the reason I was playing the melody up an octave is because I was reading it. I don't remember what video this is on, but if the sheet music has this little 8 here below the treble clef, that means that everything is to be interpreted down an octave. So guitar sheet music, like classical guitar sheet music, music written for guitar has this there because we are actually reading down an octave from what is written at pitch, right? So if a piano player, a violin, a singer, if somebody who reads at concert pitch read this, and if this wasn't there, then that would be up an octave from where we read it when this is there or where a guitar typically reads it. So I am trying to be accurate with all of the sheet music I'm showing on the screen for this whole series. If this is here, I'm reading it down an octave from where it's written at pitch, which is going to seem normal for a guitar player. If this is not there, I'm going to be playing it where it's written at pitch, so it's going to sound an octave higher. And you don't really need to worry about any of that if you're a tab user, because I'm going to show you tabs on the screen for exactly where to play it. So it'll be lower with this or it'll be higher without it. Either way, the notation is going to kind of look like it does, where it's at. Just wanted to point that out. That's kind of cool to have to know about the guitar notation, that we do transpose down an octave when we read sheet music on the guitar. Here's that C natural minor scale. The better you know that, the better you're going to learn the melody, the easier it's going to be. I'm using my root to root method where I start on the root, I play every C that is the root, I repeat those, I don't repeat or pause on any other notes. That grounds me in the sound of C natural minor. Otherwise, this is the same scale as E flat major. So what's going to make it sound like C natural minor? It's repeating the roots like that. The other scale is F harmonic minor. And just for fun, we're going to do it with the root to root method off of C as well, because the chord during that is C flat 9 or C flat 13. It has flat 9 or flat 13 in it. It's a C dominant 7th chord that comes from F harmonic minor. So the root of the chord is actually C. So the mode of the scale you could think of as C. So the 5th mode of harmonic minor is called Phrygian dominant, but otherwise this is just going to be an F harmonic minor scale, and we're going to do root to root off of C, and it'll sound like this. Pretty cool sound, right? Go ahead and just practice that up and down as a collection of notes if you prefer to do that instead. If you do the mode version, then you're practicing C Phrygian dominant, which can be useful because you will be using that scale to improvise with over C dominant 7 in the song. But those are the two scales for the melody. Now let's just learn the actual melody. Now I'll play you these softly as in a morning sunrise melody, and I encourage you to use this section to practice along with my demonstration until you have it down. There will be guitar tab and notation on the screen as I play, so you can see exactly where on the fretboard I recommend first learning how to play this melody. Here it is at 140 beats per minute. Let's learn the chords next. What's there to say about the chords? Well, just all these minor 2, 5, 1. So this is the 1 chord. This is the 2 chord of the minor key. This is the 5 chord of the minor key. Minor 2, 5, 1. This is 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, over and over and over again. Second ending here does a 2, 5 into E flat major. This is the relative major of C minor. These are relative major and minor keys of each other. That means they share the same key signature. They both have these same 3 flats in them, so they are related keys. Remember when I said the C natural minor scale is the same thing as the E flat major scale, and that's why we played the root to root method off of the C note. If you did the root to root method off of the E flat note, you would get very much sounding like the E flat major scale. So we have the 2 chord, the 5 chord of E flat major, and this is, again, the relative major. You can think of this relative major as being off of the flat 3 of C minor. So whatever is the flat 3 of a minor key, that is the root of your relative major. It's a lot easier to think of on the actual guitar when you see 3 frets up from a minor chord is where the relative major is. So you can kind of navigate to it in that way. This is going to the 6 chord of E flat. Another way to think of it is the 5 of 2. F minor, which we saw here, is the 2 chord of E flat. And if you're like, whoa, how am I ever going to know where my 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord? Just practice your chords through the key. 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, and do that in various keys, and you're going to know that stuff. And I have videos all about that on my channel. You can go to my channel and search for topics like that and find all kinds of excellent exercises for drilling your chords through the keys or anything else you want. So we have the 5 of 2, okay? So this is a chord that is targeting the 2. We're seeing this a lot in this series. This is what functional harmony is doing. It's causing tension to resolve to something that is often not the root of the key. This is not the root of the key. So it's tonicizing the 2 for a second. Then we land on that 2 chord, and then this is this beautiful stepwise motion, this passing chord, this diminished chord, a half step up from F and a half step below where it's going to. So it's causing this very much this tension to land on G7. However, G7 flat 9 is a tension chord as well. And that's just bringing us back to this 5 chord of C minor. Then we have a 2-5, and we're back in forever 2-5 land 1, or 2-5 minor 2-5-1 land 1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1, etc. So these A sections are just a ton of that. It's a pretty easy tune to memorize because of this. You get all these 2-5-1s, and then you just have this beautiful relative major section. And a bridge very often is supposed to be this contrasting section. What's a harmonic area you haven't been to? What's a different color you haven't been to? Oh, we're so minor, we're so dark. Let's go to the happy place. Let's go to the relative major. So if you're composing it all or analyzing other songs, consider how is the bridge different? Why, is it going to a fresh tonal area that feels really contrasting? And in a lot of classic songs, the lyrics do that as well. They propose a different perspective, and then they go back to this thing that we had in the A section again. So those are the chords. Let me show you them on the guitar. Now I'll play you 2 different versions of these Softly as in a Morning Sunrise guitar chords. I'll play each chord once, each time a chord changes, and I'll show you the chord shape diagrams on the screen as I play them. I encourage you to practice along with these demonstrations as you're working on getting the chords down. First, I will play you the chords using the simplest chord shapes possible. These are often called shell voicings, and they're widely used in jazz. Here's that demonstration at 140 beats per minute. Now I'll show you the more common jazz guitar chord shapes that you can play over this tune. These shapes have an extra note in them, so they fill out the sound a little more. This demonstration is also at 140 beats per minute. Let me quickly say here that the G7 flat 9, which could be interpreted as G, B, F, and then A flat, or 1, 3, 7 flat 9, if you're being strict about needing to include the flat 9. But the flat 9, as I've said in other videos in this series, is an indicator that it comes from the harmonic minor scale, and that always has, unless it says otherwise, a flat 13 as well. So this voicing is going to be the more common voicing that we're going to play for that. Just depends on where you are on the guitar. So this is G7, and this is here, this pinky is the flat 13, but that is representative of, if you see on a lead sheet G7 flat 9 and you play this, you're playing the correct chord. So that's what we're going to use a lot in this version. Here's your comping tip for this lesson. The comping tip is to have a rhythmic motif or theme or just something simple that is a rhythm that you can repeat. So if we do maybe and don't try to get too fancy with doing, anything else until you can consistently do, some kind of rhythm that locks in, and just you can repeat that rhythm. So let's do another version of that where we do like on the and of 1 and then on the 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and make up any other rhythm. And if you repeat it, it will sound cohesive, much more so than if you're trying to kind of constantly reinvent the wheel and play some interpretive fancy rhythm. That's fine to do later, especially after you can lock back into something thematic. And if you start with something thematic, you can do something off and different and then come back to that, and it'll feel like you are grounded. A secondary kind of bonus comping tip I want to give you on this one, because it's so accessible to do on this type of chord progression, is a walking bass line with the chords. So if you do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, in this progression, if you play the roots as a bass line on beats 1 and 3, you can pass to the other roots on the other beats. So we do have a full measure of C. So I'm going to go, think of that as passing kind of to itself. I'm just going 1, 2, 3. So on 1 and 3, I played the root of C. And then on beat 4, I'm going to play this outside note passing to the root of D. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, now we're on 1. Now any progression that has chords that are lasting 2 beats is easy to do a walking bass line thing, because you can just play the root of the chord and then play a half step below, a half step above, a half step below, a whole step above. You can play something approaching the next chord. So do, 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 do. So at least for the D to G, that works really well. And the C minor works well too, since it's so close to D minor. You can kind of go back and then go back a step and then back up to C and get this walking bass thing. Makes sense? Now if you add the chords in, I kind of switched up where I was playing the chords. It's fun to do it in different places, but you can just stick to that rhythm. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And the way I switched it up was I played the chord on beat 1 and then the end of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So then it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then mixing it up between those. If you want to know more about that, I actually have a 4-part series about walking bass lines, and I cover some of that stuff in it. I'll link to that in the description. So that's kind of a bonus comping tip for this. Great to do, just exactly what I showed you there for this progression, and really fun to do on your own. Next, I'll show you 2 different options for the scales you need to be able to improvise and solo over Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. I will demonstrate and show you the diagrams of the scales all in one overlapping specific position on the fretboard, which is where I recommend that you learn how to improvise with them before worrying about mastering all the other scale positions, or at least working on improvising in one position where everything is overlapping and you can connect your ideas together. Let's talk about that. Here's my complete scales sheet for this tune. That just means I'm showing exactly what scale every harmonic spot comes from. So C minor 7 is coming from C natural minor, the scale which we practice. That's what the melody's coming from. This minor 2-5-1 though is targeting it in such a way that adds a note that adds tension, and that's coming from the C harmonic minor scale. If you've watched any other videos in this series, this is happening all the time. This is like the second most important scale to learn, because it's just happening so often. If a dominant 7 chord is targeting a minor 7 chord, harmonic minor is the scale to use. You can use other scales. You can use tons of other scales for dominant 7th chords, altered scale or diminished scale, or all kinds of things. But harmonically speaking, it's really coming from that harmonic minor scale. So it's good to have that down. Now that seems like, oh man, switch scale every measure. Yeah, you don't really actually have to do that. We're going to talk about that with the simplified scales in a second. But technically, it's where it comes from, and it is good to still practice seeing that switch, hearing that switch, doing that. Targeting it that much with the scale every time is going to sound a little kind of trite. It's going to sound a little forced, but it's still good to be able to do it. When you can think of all of this, though, as just C minor, and your ear naturally maybe targets the major 7 that's below the root of C minor 7 occasionally. That's what this harmony does, the B natural that's right below C. That's really what's happening here. There's something called elongation or prolongation. I always mixed it up and called it elongation, but I believe it's prolongation. Anyway, we're prolonging just a C minor. So really, technically, this is just all C minor. This is just a C minor sound, but how are you going to keep C minor interesting and in the jazz kind of aesthetic, harmonically speaking, going to the 5 chord? And really, this is what classical composers are doing too. Like, okay, you have a lot of this one minor chord, a lot of this one major chord. Go to the 5 and come back. Go to the 5 and come back. Cause a little tension briefly and come back. You're just prolonging the harmony. And well, we're in the jazz world adding this to it as well. So it's just a lot of that. So you can absolutely target all of that or not. Now, it sounds really good to target it with chord tones, and it sounds like it's really weaving and arpeggiating between things if you do that. But if you only do that, you're kind of missing out on the bigger chunk picture of this all just being C minor. So when I'm showing all of these options, there's not a better or worse, right? There's not if you're a beginner, use my simplified scales. No, not at all. The simplified scale sheet that I'm going to show you next is something people don't use this terminology that I'm using. I'm just doing that for the sake of teaching complete scales, simplified scales. But players, amazing players, are playing in big, broad strokes, especially after playing through the form a few times. And it's like, all right, let's get loose. Let's forget about details. Let's play big ideas that are just more repeating and ignoring more of the harmony, so we can land on these big spots that matter. Kind of thinking of bigger brush strokes. Back to where I was, as I digress. Pretty obvious what's happening here. So then we have 2-5 in E flat major, so that's all E flat major. We talked about this being from F harmonic minor, so easy that is from there. This is E flat major again, but since it's just that one measure on that F, we're going to just call it F Dorian. You can think of it as E flat major. You can think of it as C natural minor. It's that collection of notes, that family of notes that comes from. So F sharp diminished would be the scale here. A lot of times I'm just arpeggiating, and a lot of players will just actually play an arpeggio if that's moving by quickly, because it sounds so good. It just really targets it. But the diminished scale sounds fantastic as well. And then, as we know, dominant 7 flat 9 comes from harmonic minor. So then we have harmonic minor and this 2-5-1. So back to this, and that's all repeating from there. So kind of my with that digression in there, where I kind of got into talking about the simplified scales. So we're going to do that in a second, but let me demonstrate all of these scales on the guitar up and down, because we want to learn those, and then I'll demonstrate improvising with them, and we'll move on from there. Here's C natural minor. I'll just play it as a collection of notes. Kind of feel like ending on the C there, since I'm thinking of it as C. Then here's C harmonic minor. Okay, next is E flat major. Well, we just played it as C natural minor, same collection of notes. I'll play it again though. Even though I just played both of them up and down, I still was kind of thinking of it more as rooting myself visually and aurally off of E flat. That's why I ended on E flat at the end there. Here's F harmonic minor. Okay, here's F Dorian. Well, this is the same collection of notes, once again, as that E flat major scale and C natural minor. Let's do root to root on it then, so we think of it as F Dorian. That's how we work on a mode. And the only one left is the F sharp diminished scale. That's this. Now I will demonstrate improvising with those scales one time through the progression. So here's our simplified scale sheets. Now, when I say C natural minor here, and that's the same as E flat major as we've been saying, and it just goes. You can take that really literally, of course, and this has a flat 7 in that scale, a whole step below the root. But this whole business here is kind of adding tension, changing that note to a half step below the root. So it's a little more like what I mentioned when I was talking about the complete scales, where you can think of this all as just C minor. But that doesn't mean you avoid that chromatic note or that major 7 that is below the root, right? You can really just think of this as C minor, C natural minor, and then add that ideally just kind of by ear, by intuition. And the way that your ear catches that and wants to play that is by very strictly outlining the chord tones, which I'm going to demonstrate next, as well as the exact scale changes. So when you're early on working on exact scale changes and changing the scale right, on every chord and exact chord tone improvisation, outlining everything perfectly, like I said, it feels a little trite. It feels a little bit just too clinical almost. But that's what gets the vocabulary in your hands and your ears. So when you do let loose and say, okay, I'm going to just rip it on C minor, right? You can even play C blues scale on this. But your ear is going to want to, at these little moments, kind of sometimes come back to that major 7 and then target. So trust yourself. Trust me and trust yourself that when you do the drills that don't quite sound like how you want to yet, or sound too kind of obvious and not flowing and natural, that is putting into your system for yourself, your brain and your ears and your hands, the vocabulary that you will be able to reach later when you are just being looser. Okay. So you don't have to really you can play some chromatic notes here, but the point is this can just all be kind of C minor with the prolongation, right? Prolonging the harmony of C minor. Now, if you want to just play C natural minor, great. The melody itself uses just C natural minor, and what it does is it just doesn't even play that flat 7. It doesn't even play the B flat note anywhere. So you could just try to avoid the B flat note and then you're golden, because the only difference between C harmonic minor and C natural minor is B flat versus B natural. Okay, so getting your hands on it, actually hearing it and playing, it's going to be the thing that really does the trick. I love these simplified scale versions because it shows us the big spots you can't avoid, right? So this is just all still C natural minor. So you can just be thinking all same scale here, all same scale here. You probably want to be a little more, rooted, thinking E flat here, but you can't avoid this. This is such a beautiful harmonic area. You can't avoid those. You can't just play through that as E flat major, right? Really hit that F harmonic minor. So I love that there's in the simplified version, there's something to really, really workshop, like bigger movements. And then that is pretty much it. And so you get mostly C natural minor, you get this F harmonic minor, and then you get this C harmonic minor. You still get to practice it because there's 2 bars of it. So you can't really avoid it at that point. It's just a bigger area. So pretty nice. Then you're just back to C natural minor. And you could kind of just think C natural minor here if you wanted to, but because there's 2 measures of that, I like to, do that. These are just my interpretations, right? I'm just saying you can do it how you want to. And as you practice these things, you'll just not think about it this way. You're not going to think about it. You're just going to go by ear. You're going to go by feel. And that is the goal. But you need something at first to latch onto, to play really slow, out of time. What's that scale? Drill the scale. Let it take hours. Let it take time. Let it take many sessions. Let it take years. And you sit and review the scale again, try to play it, then up in tempo and all of that stuff. And it really does pay off eventually. So let me demonstrate playing with thinking more in the simplified scale version for you. going to demonstrate improvising through the entire progression purely with chord tones, only chord tones, 1, 3, 5, and 7 of each chord, and connecting those together all in one position. This is something I really emphasize, and it is a critical skill. I'm teaching all the scales because they are way harder to figure out. They're way harder to interpret and find. So it's important to know those, and they are important to know so you can have melodic lines. But if you only play scales without knowing the chord tones, you're going to have a hard time making it sound like you're really playing over the correct changes. So also we want to work on chord tones. I have a whole course on this. It's called Nail the Changes. I also talk about scales in that, but it's hugely about playing and a methodology for improvising with chord tones, and I rely on that quite a bit to know where I'm at. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you here in the same position, just so you can hear an example of that, and I'm doing that on every tune in this series. Here's your internalization tip for this lesson. This is a big one. This is really huge. You want to think of chord changes as relationships and distances and qualities, and not chord names. If you are, really internalizing and knowing a tune, studying it, not just playing at surface level. You don't want to think the chord names. You don't want to think, okay, this is C minor. I'm going to memorize this song. It's always C minor, and then it goes to D half diminished, and then it goes to G7. Side note, you probably don't even want to be thinking of D half diminished, G7. You just think, minor 2, 5, 1 leading back into C minor. We talked about prolongation, right? It's all C minor, kind of caused some tension there. But you really want to think of, okay, this is a tonic minor chord, root. Forget that it's C. And then we have a minor 2, 5, 1 into it. So there's a whole step up, and then this always goes down a fifth or up a fourth. Now we're talking, because you can think in relationships. From here, you need to go up a fourth or down a fifth. You need to find the what's called the 5-1 relationship from here. So as if this is 5, 5, 1, 5, 1. Even though it's not 5 to 1, that's the 5-1 relationship. It's going through the circle of fourths, right? So this main chord, easy enough that you can, anywhere you are, pretend you're in any key, doesn't matter. You think, okay, this 2 chord, I'm just going up a whole step. It's the closest place to play it, makes sense. From here, you want to have 3 different ways you can move to the next chord. You can go up a fourth, you can go down a fifth, same note, or you can go up here. Okay, now you're not thinking, I'm going D half diminished to G7. You're thinking, I need to move functionally through the circle of fourths to the next chord that is a dominant 7th chord. So now I'm seeing the distance on the guitar from here to here. I could jump to that G7, or distance from here to here, play that G7. Distance from here to here, play that G7. Okay, if I'm just thinking G7, the name, you're much more limited than thinking of these distances and these functions. And I hope you see where we're going with this, which we'll talk about in the next video, that this will allow you to play in any key. Okay, so, function. So now I'm thinking, there's that G7. Well, now I need to go up a fourth or down a fifth to C minor, going through the circle of fourths again. So, okay, I might think of it that way. So see your distance along a string, up a fourth, down a fifth that way. Just all these places where you can go. Now I'm here. Here's that C minor chord. Up a whole step to that D half diminished. Down a fifth to G7. Down a fifth to C minor. Up a whole step. So it is very powerful that I'm moving around much more than I was before by just memorizing certain chord shapes. Even if you don't know all those shapes yet, just think even in terms of these roots. Now, when we get to the bridge, you want to think, where's that main tonal center of the bridge? It is the relative major, okay? So you just want to think of it as a minor third above the key that we were in, 3 frets above. But you do want to play a 2-5 into it. So you're going to be thinking, you can choose to think to your distance to that 2. And in that case, you're on C minor, and you're going to go up a 4th or down a 5th to that. And then you make a 2-5 from there. Or you can think of landing in that key center and kind of think 2-5 into it, or just get there without even the 2-5 is fine too. But let's just say chord by chord. So you're on C minor and we're about to go into the bridge. And now F minor is through the circle of fourths once again. Up a 4th here, down a 4th here, up a 4th here. So I'm thinking in these distances. And now I can go 2 to 5. And always 2-5 motions are going to be that same thing. That's why it's so important to study. From F minor to B flat 7, up a 4th or down a 5th. And now I'm on E flat major for the bridge. Okay, so there's so much of that circle of fourths movement. This movement next, though, from E flat major, the next chord is C7. So great, what's the relationship? It is off the major 6, 1, 7, 6. If E flat is 1, 1, 7, 6, you want to play a dominant 7 chord off the 6. So it's here, or it's here, or it's here. Okay, so relationships. I'm not thinking where's C7. I'm thinking from here, the 6. And from here, resolve through the circle of fourths to F minor. And then up a half step to diminished. That goes up a half step to G7, and now I'm targeting back to where we started in the tune. So even if that's over your head, the concept should make sense, right? Oh, I want to think of relationships, distances, and take your time to kind of figure out your version of that. So it's not just drilling, now what chord name is it? No. What distance does it go to? What quality does it go to? What relationship physically on the guitar are you looking for? And that's going to translate to help you know how this chord progression sounds functionally, and not just kind of thinking of it as these chord names. And then you'll be able to play it in any key, which is one of the secrets to internalization, which we're going to talk about later. So that's your tip for this time. I hope that helps. If that's brand new to you, just let any amount of that soak in. If that makes sense to you, start working on that a little bit. It'll go a long way. Hey, if you want the downloadable resources from this lesson, like those scale diagrams, like the scale lead sheets where it's showing you the chord progression and then the scales that go with each chord. I've never seen any other lead sheet like that. I'm sure other people have done it, but this is how I've helped students for a long time when I was teaching one-on-one lessons. Like, hey, let's write out what scale in this tonal center, what scale does every single chord come from, so you can have that in front of you and practice switching those scales. Well, if you want the PDF like that, and also the chord shapes and almost everything that I showed in this video, I can't give away melodies to songs that I don't own the rights to, but some of the tunes in this series are public domain, and in that case, I'll give away the tabs and lead sheet and everything. But even when I can't, you can learn the melody very easily with the video that I made. But all the other resources I have as a downloadable pack, and resources for other videos as well that aren't just in this series. And those are in my weekly lesson resources membership, which you can join at a very low cost and support the channel every month and get resources that go along with my weekly videos. There are links to join either on my site or through Patreon. It's the exact same thing. So if you love Patreon, I made that option for you as well. So if you want the resources that go along with this series and my other lessons, I hope to see you in that membership and that you'll consider becoming a supporter. And if not, that's totally fine. I hope you're enjoying the series, and I really appreciate you watching. Listening to the songs that we want to play is super important. If you want a jazz guitar listening recommendation for Softly as in a Morning Sunrise, I recommend Barney Kessel's version on his album Live at Sometime. I really like Barney Kessel's playing. That's the version that I recommend. There's a link to a playlist of all the listening recommendations in the description, to YouTube and a Spotify playlist as well. Make sure you listen to that or some version. Choose a version you like and listen to it a bunch. It'll help a lot when you're learning any song. And make sure you're subscribed, because I can't wait to see you in my next lesson, where we will do song number 10 in the top 25 jazz standards for guitar players list, which is going to be All the Things You Are. Hit that like button and leave a comment to let me know if you liked this lesson. It really makes a difference and helps the video reach more people. Check out the description for all the links I've mentioned and for how you can support the channel. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and happy practicing.